It is time for our daily news review. Take a look at what's making headlines around the world this morning. And we begin, hopefully, with the New York Times Online. There it is. Reporting on the US Attorney General Jeff Sessions stepping aside from investigations into alleged Russian interference in the US election. The paper says that he faces a storm of criticism over undisclosed meetings with the Russian ambassador last year.
Shares in Snap, the parent company of Snapchat, soared more than 40% in their market debut. That's the story on the front page of the Financial Times. The paper says the company is now worth 2.5 times its social media rival Twitter.
As we were hearing just a few minutes ago, a unit of Bitcoin is now worth more than an ounce of gold. Forbes Online reports on that story, saying the price of the digital currency has been rising steadily and on Thursday finally surpassed gold for the first time in its history.
Le Figaro looks at French presidential candidate Emmanuel Macron and the unveiling of his manifesto. It says the centrist candidate has been accused for months over the vagueness of his programme, but is trying to break free from that image with his new proposals.
And the Daily Telegraph reports that a group of scientists is saying artificial human life has the potential to soon be grown in a laboratory after they created a living mouse embryo using only stem cells.
Moving away from the James Bond stereotype, The Guardian says Britain's secret intelligence service, also known as MI6, will increase efforts to recruit black and Asian spies to deal with modern-day threats.
And joining us this morning, Cornelia Meyer, CEO of the business consultancy MRL Corporation. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. Let's start with, well, I mean, it's the Trump administration as ever. It seems to be the case every day. But Jeff Sessions in particular and his Attorney General, I mean, how much trouble is he in, do you think?
I think he's in quite a bit of a trouble because it's if you lie under oath, that's perjury, right, under US law. He's the Attorney General, so it's not a good idea to perjure yourself, probably. And what I was surprised at is that he was quite careless when he said, well, you know, I didn't meet him as a presidential candidate. I met him as a member of the Senate committee dealing with security and foreign affairs. Well, great, but then he should have maybe said, and as a lawyer he's probably very good in saying, in my capacity as a presidential, as a member of the presidential campaign, I never met him. But so he didn't do that. He said I never met him. Period. I understand the Russian ambassador. He wants to meet people. He wants to put his feelers out, as did the German ambassador, as did every ambassador in Moscow. So it's unfortunate. I think his wording was unfortunate and is coming back to bite him. And I think it's created such a stir because also Mike Flynn, you know, Mike Flynn, the former national security advisor, had to step down because he didn't disclose having met him. That was much more grave because it was on security issues.
And if he were, if President Trump were to lose another senior member of his team, I mean, that wouldn't be good, would it?
That wouldn't be good, but what I'm much more concerned about than losing another member of his senior team is he has his senior team in place, but he hasn't even identified all the assistant secretaries, undersecretaries, all the appointees. So let's say if you're Germany, if you're Britain, who can you talk to? Because yes, you can, the foreign minister, the foreign secretary can go and to Mexico and make a nice speech, but then he needs the undersecretary, the assistant secretary to follow up on this and actually do the work.
Some would say the Russians certainly know who to talk to, don't they? I mean, the Russian ambassador's done a pretty good job of reaching out to them.
But the Russians have the same thing. They need that senior working level. They need the undersecretaries, the assistant secretaries to discuss real issues.
Let's move on. The Financial Times with the story about Snap Shares, the company behind Snapchat. An incredible debut.
Amazing. And
but we saw that with Twitter, didn't we? Yeah. Twitter surged, but it failed to sustain it. Do you think there's a difference in...
I think there's a difference, but the interesting thing here is, A, it surged, and B, it doesn't make profits, and you have no voting rights with the shares, and that's quite unusual.
How does that work? How can a company that makes no money see its share price do so well? I mean, is it
I
just
think
people speculating?
People are expecting that the future revenue for advertising will be high, and I can see some rationale in that, because Snap is used by people a lot, by people between 5 and 15. So if you get, especially fast-moving consumer goods and things like that, if you get your ads in there, you know, you may capture a whole generation. Remember the jingles we grew up with. We will never forget, and we look at Marmite or we look at Haribo or things like that, and we think of the jingle.
That's a good point.
Bitcoin,
technology.
yes.
Bitcoin overtaken.
Something else I don't understand.
Yeah, this blockchain currency that has now overtaken gold in terms of value. This is, I mean, it's volatile.
And
that's the point
it's
to make.
incredibly
It's very
volatile. But unlike oil or something else, it's correlated to nothing. It's not correlated to a commodity. It's not correlated to a currency. The volatility is uncorrelated. It's unregulated. You see the Chinese at some stage even blocked it because because it's unregulated. If you want to get money out of a country into something in a way of capital controls, Bitcoin is probably a good way to do it, which is why you see family offices and people like that investing in it. And I think what's giving it a boost is that the SEC looks whether there could be a Bitcoin ETF. So they expect, if they approve it as an ETF next week, there will be ETF, exchange traded
sure.
fund. If they approve it as that, you know, in that category, then they expect another 300 million to flow in. If they don't approve it, it will probably go down again.
I wish I bought some initially.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
Even if I'd only bought 100.
But if it falls, you won't. You'll be glad you didn't.
You know, Mr. Branson will accept it if you want to go on a space tourism. So
I should have done. No, but if I'd only bought 100, I would have had nothing to lose.
You could be one of the first to go to space then, James. Buy some Bitcoin.
Let's turn to France. Emmanuel Macron. I mean, he sort of seems to be trying to be all things to all people. Is this going to work for him? Do you think?
I looked at he had this wonderful statement where he said, France is not reformable, but we won't reform France. We will just redraft everything. So I thought that was quite interesting. But his economic program absolutely lacks specificity. It's a little bit like President Trump's State of the Union address, where he put out some interesting ideas, but they lacked specificity.
But isn't that a good idea when you're campaigning? Don't get pinned down too much, but at least give people sort of some...
But you see, what I'm worried about with François Fillon, maybe dropping out, maybe staying in, but certainly losing people. Macron is so many things to so many people, but there's quite a few centre-right to right people who would be voting for Fillon, that if he drops out, they may go Le Pen's way. And as you said, in the second round, Macron is slated to win. But if too many of Fillon's supporters go towards Le Pen, and that would be bad because she wants to get out of the euro and do all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Cornelia, have you ever been approached, tapped on the shoulder to become a spy? I suppose you couldn't tell us if you could, though.
No, sadly not. But I think what MI6 is trying to do is to make it ethnically broader, reflect our society a little bit more is good. And then let's look at it. If you are a spy, you have to go to Asia, you have to go to the Middle East. So having people of that heritage is probably a very good idea.
And they've been advertising for a few years, but it clearly hasn't worked because, as the article suggests, they're having to actually go out and do the old thing of tapping people on the shoulder and having a quiet drink and saying, have you ever thought about a job in government?
Yeah, no, but I think that's a good thing. Yeah. And I think, look, the MI6 is doing a stellar job, and we need both MI5 and MI6 in this country.
We'll have to leave it there. Nice to see you.
Great to see you.
That's it from us. Yeah. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
See you soon.